13 Hemlock Street. I remember the chill that ran down my spine as I read the cryptic newspaper advertisement. Seeking a brave soul for a unique job opportunity. Inquire at 13 Hemlock Street tonight at midnight. With curiosity overpowering my sense of caution, I ventured into the dark abyss of uncertainty that awaited me that fateful night. The ominous address led me to a decrepit, seemingly abandoned house on Hemlock Street, obviously. Moonlight filtered through the gnarled branches of the surrounding trees, casting eerie shadows that danced on the creaking porch. My heart raced as I hesitated at the front door, but something inside compelled me to knock. The door groined open slowly, revealing a dimly lit interior filled with the musky scent of age and secrets long buried. I stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind me with a force that made me jump. Panic surged through me, but escape was impossible. The room was empty, except for a single flickering candle on an antique table. A voice, soft yet chilling, whispered from the shadows. "You've answered the call, haven't you?" My eyes strained to see the figure hidden in the darkness, but all I could discern were two glinting, malevolent eyes. Fear gripped me, but I nodded, my voice trembling a little as I replied, "Yes, I have." Little did I know that my decision that night would plunge me into a nightmare beyond my wildest imagination. The eyes in the darkness seemed to scrutinize me for an eternity before the voice spoke again, a sinister smile evident in its tone. "Very well. You have entered a world of secrets, my dear. One from which there is no turning back." With each step, the room seemed to stretch, distorting reality around me. I felt an invisible presence closing in, its malevolence palpable. Panic clawed at my chest, but I had no choice but to push forward, guided only by the candle's flickering, feeble light. The voice continued, recounting a haunting tale of the house's history, a place where unspeakable horrors had occurred, where a malevolent spirit had taken residence, and where the previous occupants had all mysteriously disappeared. I shuddered, realizing that I was now part of this sinister narrative. As the story unfolded, I began to discern ghostly figures in the shadows, their mournful whispers echoing through the air. The room grew colder, and a feeling of dread settled over me like a suffocating shroud. I had unwittingly entered a nightmare, and there was no way out. With a final, bone-chilling warning, the voice concluded. "You've been chosen, my dear, and now you must serve a dark and insatiable entity. Welcome to your new life, or should I say, your eternal torment." The candle extinguished abruptly, plunging me into a stifling darkness, and I realized that I was truly alone with the malevolent force that dwelled within 13 Hemlock Street. In the suffocating darkness, I fumbled for any semblance of escape, but the walls seemed to shift, confining me further. Whispers swirled around me like ethereal chains, and I could feel unseen eyes watching my every move. Panic threatened to consume me entirely. With trembling hands, I took a tentative step forward, guided by the distant memory of the door's location. The malevolent presence lurked just beyond my vision, suffocating and unrelenting. As I groped through the inky blackness, my fingers brushed against something cold and grotesque. A guttural gasp escaped my lips as I recoiled, realizing I had stumbled upon a grotesque relic. A withered, skeletal hand, clutching an old diary. My own trembling hands opened the diary to reveal the desperate scribblings of those who had come before me. Their entries filled with torment and madness. The voices in the darkness grew louder, mocking my fear, and I knew that the only way out was to confront the entity that had ensnared me. Summoning every ounce of courage, I cried out, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" A sinister laughter echoed in response, reverberating through the walls. "I am the darkness that feeds on your fear," the voice replied, its tone chilling to the bone. "And what I want, my dear, is your obedience." The sinister voice, now dripping with a perverse amusement, revealed its gruesome plan. "Your job, my dear," it hissed, "is to meet people and write their names in the book. You must inscribe 5 new names every night. And if you succeed, you will be paid handsomely." I hesitated, my mind racing with fear and confusion. What happens to those whose names I write?" I dared to ask, fearing the answer. The entity's laughter echoed the darkness once more. "Oh, they become part of this place, just like you. Bound to serve for eternity, their souls trapped in the never-ending torment of 13 Hemlock Street." Tears welled up in my eyes as the chilling reality of my situation sank in. I must have unwittingly signed a sinister contract with the malevolent force, and my fate, it seemed, was sealed. The prospect of my task weighed on me, but the promise of a handsome reward taunted my desperate thoughts. With a heavy heart and trembling hand, I accepted the cursed quill and the ominous book that materialized before me. That first name I wrote was mine, a cruel reminder of my entrapment. And as the ink dried, I knew that my only chance at survival was to continue this macabre task, praying that someday I would find a way to break free from the grip of 13 Hemlock Street and the malevolent force that held me captive. To my surprise, the malevolent force relented and allowed me to leave the house. As I stepped out into the cold night, my heart sank with the hope of escape. I believed that I could simply not return to 13 Hemlock Street and thus avoid writing anyone's name in the accursed book. Days turned into weeks, and I cautiously resumed my normal life, desperately trying to forget the horrors that I had witnessed. The promise of a handsome reward had been enticing, but I couldn't bear to condemn innocent souls to the same fate that I, apparently, had narrowly escaped. However, the malevolent force was not so easily outwitted. It haunted my dreams with tormenting visions, its whispers of vengeance and retribution echoing in the darkest recesses of my mind. Sleep became a dreaded ordeal, and the guilt of my escape weighed heavily on my conscience. One fateful night, as the moon hung low in the sky, I heard a hauntingly familiar voice. Though this time, it was not a whisper from the shadows, but a loud, accusatory scream in my head. You cannot escape your pact. Return to 13 Hemlock Street, or your torment will be unending. Fear gripped me anew, as I realised that my freedom had been nothing more than an illusion. The malevolent force had found a way to reach me, even beyond the confines of that sinister house. I knew that I had no choice but to face my dreadful task and return to the cursed address, hoping against hope that I could find a way to break this unholy bond and free myself from the malevolent entity that now controlled my fate. But despite the relentless torment and the haunting dreams, I refused to return to 13 Hemlock Street. My conscience couldn't bear to condemn innocent souls, no matter the cost. I thought I could withstand the malevolent force's wrath, but as the days turned into weeks, I paid a heavy price for my defiance. Sleep eluded me completely, and I descended into a waking nightmare. Each night, it was plagued by gruesome visions in the house, its walls closing in, and the sinister entity drawing closer with every passing moment. My days blurred into sleep-deprived delirium, and I grew skeletal and gaunt, shedding weight at an alarming rate. Terrible headaches became my constant companions, throbbing relentlessly, a reminder of my inescapable pact. My once vibrant life crumbled around me as I became a hollow shell of my former self, haunted by the malevolent force's relentless pursuit. Friends and family grew concerned, but I couldn't bring myself to explain the horrors that had befallen me. I was trapped in a nightmarish limbo, the entity's grip on my soul unyielding, its vengeance growing more vicious with each passing day. As I withered away, I realised that my defiance had brought me to the brink of madness and despair. My physical and mental deterioration continued unabated. The relentless headaches now brought nosebleeds that stained my world crimson, a horrifying reminder of my entanglement with 13 Hemlock Street. The nights grew longer, and I suffered from disorienting periods of memory loss. I would awaken with no recollection of what had transpired, only to find myself standing outside a forbidding house. On 3 separate occasions, I stood at the threshold of that accursed place, my body drawn to it as if by an invisible force. Each time, I had to summon every ounce of willpower to turn away, my heart pounding with dread. I couldn't fathom what malevolent power was compelling me to return, but I knew I couldn't succumb to its sinister allure. Desperation pushed me to seek answers. I scoured ancient texts and consulted reclusive experts in the occult, hoping to find a way to break the unholy bond that imprisoned me. It was during one of these research binges that I stumbled upon a cryptic incantation. An incantation said to sever the link between a soul and a malevolent entity. With trembling hands, I recited the incantation, drawing upon every ounce of my strength. The room seemed to tremble, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. But that malevolent force's retaliation, swift and merciless. It lashed out, intensifying the torment and unleashing a wave of malevolence that left me writhing in absolute agony. As the darkness closed in around me, I realised that my defiance had triggered a relentless battle for my soul. With my strength waning, I faced a choice. Succumb to the relentless entity, or wage an unwavering war for my freedom, even if it meant descending further into the heart of this ever-deepening, relentless, never-ending nightmare. In a final act of defiance and desperation, I had recited the incantation again, and the world around me shattered into darkness. My consciousness faded, and I slipped into a black abyss, hoping against hope that my sacrifice would finally break the malevolent force's grip on my soul. When I awoke, I was not in the waking world, but within the suffocating confines of 13 Hemlock Street. Panic surged within me as I realised my surroundings. Those similar, familiar, eerie walls and the ominous book. The ink, freshly inscribed with 5 names. My heart sank as I recognised the names. People I knew, friends and family, who had been drawn into this nightmarish ordeal through my actions. To my shock, the incessant headaches and disorientation that had plagued me for so long were gone. My body felt rejuvenated, as if the entity had rewarded me for my submission by relieving me of the torment. But the price was too steep. The guilt and anguish welled up in me as I gazed upon the names of those I cared about, now forever bound to 13 Hemlock Street. It was a chilling reminder of the entity's cruelty, the price I had paid for my defiance, and the treacherous path that I had unwittingly embarked upon. Torn between my desire for freedom and the haunting knowledge of the souls I had condemned, I knew that my journey had only just begun. With a heavy heart, I vowed to unravel the sinister mysteries of the house, to find a way to free both myself and the souls ensnared in this malevolent entity's grasp, no matter the cost. Leaving 13 Hemlock Street behind, I re-entered the world with a heavy heart and a soul scarred by the horrors I had witnessed. But as I sought out the people whose names I had reluctantly written in the book, a chilling truth emerged. They were gone. As if they had never existed. Their homes were empty, and their friends and family had no recollection of them. A sense of profound sorrow and guilt gnawed at me, for I had unwittingly erased these lives from existence. The malevolent farce kept its promise of rewarding me handsomely for my dark task. A substantial sum of money was deposited into my bank account for each name I had inscribed. But the wealth felt tainted. The cruel reminder of the lives I had sacrificed. I couldn't bear to send a single cent of it. As the next nine came and went, I struggled with the weight of my decision not to write more names in the book. I had vowed to never again condemn innocent souls. But the malevolent entity was not one to be trifled with. The headaches returned with a vengeance. Their throbbing intensity a chilling reminder of the consequences of my defiance. Each passing hour felt like an eternity as I writhed in pain, tormented by the relentless agony. The malevolent force had unleashed its wrath upon me once more, and I could feel its sinister presence creeping in, taunting me for my feeble attempt at redemption. Desperation drove me to the edge of madness, torn between the guilt of my past actions and the torment of the present. With each passing moment, I feared that I had made a grave mistake in refusing to write more names, that I had doomed myself to an eternity of suffering. In the suffocating darkness, I knew that I had to make a choice. Submit to the entity's demands once more, or continue to endure the excruciating pain in the hope that somehow, someday, some way, I would finally find a way to break free from the endless nightmare and redeem my tarnished soul. As the headaches and torment persisted, I found myself facing a grim reality. If I had to write names in the book to appease this malevolent entity, I reasoned that those names should belong to individuals who had committed heinous crimes. It was a desperate attempt to find some semblance of balance between my moral compass and the malevolent force's insidious demands. Turning to the newspaper's police blotter, I began compiling a list of names associated with the darkest deeds. Criminals who had caused suffering and chaos. It was a chilling task, one that twisted my sense of justice. But I couldn't bear to condemn innocent souls any longer. Night after night, I wrote down the names of those who had committed vile acts, their deeds etched in the malevolent book. The headache subsided, and a grim satisfaction settled over me. It was a precarious equilibrium, a tenuous truce with the sinister entity that had ensnared me. But this force was not easily appeased. It hungered for more, and I could sense its malevolence growing stronger with each name I wrote. As the line between justice and vengeance blurred, I found myself trapped in a moral quagmire, a reluctant accomplice to the malevolent entity's thirst for retribution. Still haunted by my actions, I continued my quest to uncover the truth behind the malevolent force, desperate to find a way to break free from its grasp and redeem my soul, all while navigating this treacherous path that I had chosen. A path where the line between good and evil had become disturbingly thin. 2 long years passed in a blur of darkness and malevolent compromise. Night after night, I wrote down the names of criminals from the police blotter, erasing them from the world as if they had never existed. The relentless headaches became a grim routine, and the sinister entity's demands for more names just grew insatiable, more and more every night. But as time ran on, I began to run out of criminals to write into the book. The newspaper's police blotter grew thinner, and my list of malefactors dwindled. We could feel the entity's growing impatience, its presence pressing upon me with greater urgency. Desperation gnawed at me as I scoured the city for any hint of criminal activity, grasping at straws to satisfy the entity's hunger. But my efforts yielded diminishing returns, and the sinister force's wrath intensified with each passing night. It seemed that my quest to maintain a semblance of morality in this dark pact was reaching its breaking point. As the entity's impatience grew, so did my determination to break free from its grasp. I delved deeper into the history of 13 Hemlock Street, seeking any hidden knowledge or clues that might hold the key to my salvation. My restless nights were spent in research, poring over dusty tomes and deciphering cryptic symbols. I reached out to experts in the arcane, searching for answers that had eluded me for far too long. The nightmares and the relentless headaches persisted, but the hope of redemption burned brighter with each passing day. One evening, during my relentless pursuit of knowledge, I stumbled upon a revelation. An ancient incantation that had the power to banish the malevolent entity once and for all. The incantation spoke of a ritual that could sever the unholy bond between the book and the entity, potentially freeing not only myself, but all the souls ensnared within. With newfound determination, I gathered the necessary components and prepared for the ritual. The night arrived, and the malevolent force grew furious, sensing that its grip was slipping. I recited the incantation with all the strength and conviction I could muster, and the room trembled as if the very walls of 13 Hemlock Street protested my actions. In a blinding burst of light and a deafening roar, the malevolent entity was cast out, vanquished by the ancient power of the incantation. The house itself seemed to sigh in relief, as if released from the presence that had haunted it for centuries. The entity banished, I embarked on a quest to reverse the consequences of my actions and rescue the souls that had been erased from existence. It was a daunting task, as I had no knowledge of how to undo the damage that had been done. But my determination was unwavering, and I couldn't rest until I made amends. We began by retracing the lives of those whose names I had written in the book. It's a challenging endeavour, as they left no trace in the world. With each lead I pursued, it became apparent the malevolent force had not only erased their existence, but had also erased all knowledge and memories of them. It was as if they had never been born. Even my own memories of them seemed to fade more with every day. Undeterred, I kept looking, hoping to find clues that could lead me to a solution. I discovered old journals and manuscripts hidden within the house, shedding light on its dark history and the entity's origin. It appeared that the entity had been bound to the house by a curse centuries ago, and my actions had inadvertently unleashed it. Armed with this knowledge, I sought out a group of skilled occultists who might possess the power to reverse the malevolent force's curse and restore the lost souls. Together, we conducted a complex ritual, channeling the ancient magic we had discovered. Despite my efforts and the rituals performed, I found myself unable to fully return the souls to the world. They lingered in a liminal space, neither fully present nor entirely erased, their existence in a perpetual state of uncertainty. This haunting failure gnawed at my soul, driving me to the brink of madness once more. Days turned into sleepless nights, and the weight of my past actions bore down on me with relentless force. The entity, although banished, still whispered in the darkest corners of my mind, taunting me with its malevolent presence. I grew increasingly desperate, haunted by the realisation that there might be no way to reverse the horrors that I had unleashed. In the depths of despair, a sinister idea began to take root. A horrifying realisation that the only way to sustain my existence and fend off the encroaching madness was to steal souls myself using the cursed book. The temptation was irresistible, and I knew that embracing such malevolence was a damning choice. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, I reopened the book, determined to continue its dark work. The headaches and torment returned, but they were but a small price to pay to stave off the madness that threatened to consume me. Each name I wrote into the book brought a twisted sense of satisfaction, a perverse relief from the relentless guilt and despair that had become my constant companions. But with each stolen soul, I could feel the entity's grip on me tightening once more. It revelled in my descent into darkness, its whispers growing louder and more insistent. I was trapped in a never-ending cycle, a prisoner of my own making. As I continued to steal souls to preserve my sanity, I knew that there could be no redemption for me. I had become a monster, a willing accomplice in the very darkness that I had once sought to vanquish. And in the book, I had found a cursed existence that would haunt me for all eternity. As I continued to steal souls, I could feel my own humanity slipping away. The influence over me had grown stronger, and with each stolen name I became more grotesque, more twisted. My reflection in the mirror was a grotesque parody of the person I had once been, a living testament to the darkness that now consumed me. The headaches and torment never abated, but I had grown numb to their pain. I could no longer go out in public. My appearance had become too horrifying, too monstrous. I was trapped in the shadows, a prisoner of my own malevolence. Desperation and isolation pushed me to a chilling realisation. I needed someone to write names in the book for me, to continue the cycle of stealing souls. The whispers urged me to seek out a willing accomplice, someone who could carry out the sinister task on my behalf. With meticulous planning, I began the search for a perfect candidate. Someone who could bear the weight of the malevolent book and its grim deeds. Under my guidance, they would take up the cursed quill and inscribe the names of those who would be erased from existence in order to ensure my own preservation. I realised that I had become not only a victim, but also an agent of malevolence itself, perpetuating the cycle of darkness that had ensnared me. So then, my dear, you've answered my ad and arrived. I've told you all there is to know. 5 names you will write for me every night, and for each I shall reward you handsomely. There is no escape. You are bound now, as I was, the moment you walked through the door of 13 Hemlock Street. But unlike me, you know the price of defiance and failure. So go on. Take the quill. Start writing.